Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. With Rudy Tyburczy.
What's up, my friends? Thank you for stopping by Jokes and the Gym this week. I'm your host, Rudy Tyburczy. This is the podcast where I talk with comedians and other creative folks about their lives and creativity, health, comedy, writing, and balance, and figuring out how to figure out all that stuff in our friggin' lives. And you know what? It takes a lot. It takes a lot to figure out how to incorporate the things we love in our life. It takes a lot, but once you get there, I think it's so worth it. And I'm still working on it. I'm having a challenging time because I do love a lot of things. I love comedy. I love health. I love my family, my friends. I love eating. I love working out. I love the why. And I love my cats so doggone much. And so I was planning on going out to the yearly teddy bear picnic with Oregon Country Fair this weekend, but unfortunately my cat just started showing some really worrisome signs. Foxy, the big orange guy, my favorite orange guy, just started showing some really troublesome signs yesterday. He was bleeding out of his mouth a fair amount. It wasn't none. It wasn't like gushing, but there were times when it was pretty scary. And been on the phone with the vet and other professionals, and we've taken several measures to kind of help him out and do everything we could. And today he's not bleeding a bit. Oh my gosh, though. I just spent so much time with him yesterday. So much time. Me and my mom both spent a bunch of time with him. And it feels like he's doing a lot better. It feels like he's doing a lot better today. And it was pretty worrisome. I was definitely in a tough state yesterday. Not one that felt good to go socializing and do stuff. There were some moments when I felt like we might lose him. There was some serious stuff. And so we'll probably take him in sometime when we can. We have an at-home vet visit coming up because he just gets so traumatized by trying to put him in any kind of carrier. Oh my gosh, when that's happened in the past, when we've tried to get him in a carrier, it's just caused so much more trauma for him. So it's been such a huge challenge. Can't even do it because he fights it so hard. Anyways, gosh, I love Foxy. I love him so much, and I just feel so lucky to have my cats in my life. And I hope you feel lucky to have the pets in your life that you do, because it is so freaking cool. We get hairy little buds that run around the house. We get to cuddle with them. I just cuddled with my cat for an hour. Like, feels so joyous. I love him so much. And it's tough when you see him in pain or bleeding, or blood is a scary one too. Some of it had coagulated, so he looked like a friggin' scene from a horror movie. He's my bloody buddy. He's my bloody buddy. And that brings me to this week's fake sponsor. Bloody Buddies No Bloody Body Balm. Have you ever been in the same room as a bloody buddy? Well, so have I. Have you ever not wanted them to be bloody? Me too. Well, in that case, I've got Bloody Buddies No Bloody Body Balm. You get it when your buddy's bloody, and then you put it on your bloody buddy, and then there's no bloody buddy body balm anymore. So get Bloody Buddies No Bloody Body Balm, and hopefully your buddy won't die. And hopefully it'll be a while before you die, too. I hope you die in a long time. I hope you die in a long time. And me too. And all your loved ones, and your cats and dogs and lizards and bugs and all the stuff that you like to have around at your house. Because it's pretty special. And you're pretty special. And so's my guest today. He's pretty special. He's hilarious. He's wonderful. He's such a funny comedian. He is someone who's recently moved to LA, done that big leap, and we get into a lot of talks about movies because we both love movies. He's a huge movie guy. He's on Doug Loves Movies a lot. He's so fun to chat with, and I would love to go see movies with him. If you're in LA or anywhere where he's around, I really recommend it because he's also a great comedian. He's super fun, and I have so much fun chatting with him today, and I hope you have fun listening. I hope you have a great day. Thanks for stopping by. Now, enjoy my conversation with Chad Opitz.
Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. With Rudy Tyburczy.
Woot woot! Hello, everybody. Welcome to Jokes in the Gym. I'm stoked to have my guest here today. He is a friggin' hilarious comedian. Man, whenever I've seen this guy on stage, I'm just like captivated immediately. I'm stoked to get to chat with him a bit more and hear about his story moving to LA and doing comedy. He's a frequent guest on Doug Loves Movies. He was actually on the show Goliath as well. Everyone, put your hands together for Chad Opitz.
Hello.
Yeah, I mentioned in the intro about Goliath. You told me about that. What happened there? Who did you play in that show?
Oh, I played young Francis Ford Coppola in it.
Oh.
And it was funny because this is before I'd really done any I've done a bit more acting since then, but my friend was like, dude, I was living with this guy named Clay Newman who was getting a bunch of commercial gigs and stuff like that. And he said, there's a casting call for a young Francis Ford Coppola. You got to check out the picture. You look just like the picture they picked. And I was like, oh, what? And so I looked and I was like, oh, shit, I do look like that picture. And then that night at a show, one of the audience members said, hey, I'm on this casting networks thing, and there's a thing for young Francis Ford Coppola. You should really do that. And I was like, I guess I better do that. And so the next day, that's when I applied for the casting networks page, and I put up a profile and applied to that. And then a week later, I got a phone call as I'm leaving a movie, and the guy was like, hey, I'm the casting director for Goliath, and we want you to be young Francis Ford Coppola. And I was like, oh, man, okay, so does that mean I have to go and audition? And he was like, not if you look like that. And I was like, what the hell? So that's kind of when I knew I wasn't going to have any lines in it. I was just going to be basically set dressing. It's basically an extra, but it's kind of weird because I was wondering why they would need a young Francis Ford Coppola because the show's a modern day show, you know? So I looked it up, and they were filming in San Francisco for the upcoming season. And they were filming it at a place where Francis Ford Coppola used to write, this place called Cafe Triste. And so I think whoever wrote it was just wouldn't that be funny if there was a guy who looked like Coppola just sitting in the corner, writing on a typewriter or something. So that's all I did. I was just sitting in a corner in a typewriter, look like Francis Ford Coppola.
But you were Francis Ford Coppola in the show. Is that what it was?
But it's a total Easter egg. I'm not. I have no one points me out. Nobody It's just if that's where he, it's a total inside joke thing. And so there was no real point to it. But they had my own. They gave me my own costume. They had a outfit he wore from the 70s,
Right.
And so by far the coolest part was when I walked in, there was all these old Italian guys. They must have heard that somebody was coming in that looked like Francis Ford Coppola, and they were like, "Oh, Francis is here, Francis!" So they all wanted my fucking once they were done shooting, they all wanted my autograph, and it was I'm not actually Francis Ford Coppola, but it was super charming though. That was really neat. So then in the episode you see me for 2 shots for a second,
Right. What episode is season what? Episode what? Do you know?
No, it was season 4, episode 2. And it's
nice.
Near the beginning of the episode, and literally you have to be looking for me because it's there's one shot where it's I'm in the foreground, I'm right there, but it's kind of blurry, you can't really tell what the hell it is. But
yeah,
whatever.
I've heard so many stories of people like that getting cast in shows. Andy Andrist had one where he was in one of the Prefontaine movies and stuff as guy eating sandwich, but gets cut out or whatever. But or like Kyle Kinane was in Funny People but got cut. You know, like all these random things happen, and you're like, oh, that's fun and weird.
Yep. Dude, I know this character actor since moving to LA. I know this character actor named Troy Evans, and he has some amazing stories. Like him and I hit it off really well because, you know, if there's any lull in conversation, I'm just a huge movie nerd. He knows I'll want to hear the story. He'll just be like,
totally.
Do you want to hear about the time I worked with Robert Duvall? I'm like, yeah, dude, fucking lay it on me.
Of course.
And so he has an amazing story about being in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And he got hired for like $1,000 a day, and he was only supposed to be on set for a day, but they kept pushing it back because the weather, like they wanted a snowy day, and it kept melting. So he was on set for like almost 2 months, getting paid $1,000 a day, and somebody like messed up and forgot to like, you know, change his contract or whatever. And so he got like $60,000 by the end of it, and he was only supposed to get like $1,000.
Dude.
And he ended up this was back in the 80s. So like he made a shitload of money from that, and like he wasn't even in the movie. They cut him out of the movie.
That's great. What a great experience. And you're just like hanging out with John Candy and whatever.
Yes, dude, he has a great John Candy story too. He said that John Candy like invited him to a Super Bowl party he was throwing and had all this food, and then at the end of the night, like Troy tried to give him like $20 to like help him pay for the food, and John Candy just goes, I'm John Candy. Like, don't do that. Like, what are you doing? Like, I got this. I got this, dude.
This isn't your buddy's Super Bowl party. Typical buddies. Yeah, that's so great.
He's loaded with cool stuff like that.
That's so fun, dude. And now you're in the epicenter of all that. Is that what spurred the move to LA? A desire to act more or do more comedy?
I've been wanting to just because I was feeling kind of like in a rut in San Francisco. I wasn't really knowing what else to do. You know, I'd gotten past all the clubs, and a lot of the people I knew from my, you know, class, however you want to call it, they'd moved, you know, to LA or New York. And I just was like, man, what am I, like, where am I going to go from here? Like, I just felt like there wasn't any real, like, way to advance any further there. And, you know, everyone told me, they're like, well, you know, when you move to LA, it's going to be way less stage time because there's just so many more people vying for spots. And that's 100% true. But I've been pretty lucky in that I've gotten to go on some cool shows already. And, you know, everyone said like, oh, give it at least a year, which you know, that's what I'm doing. And even within the last couple months, I've noticed a little bit more progress. So it is looking positive. I'm glad that I did it for sure. And also just being like a huge fucking movie nerd like I am, being in LA is crazy in terms of like the movie theater scene here is so fucking cool. And so many cool theaters showing awesome movies that I want to see, and they're packed, and like, so you're surrounded by people who are interested in some of the same things as you are. It's very neat.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love the indie movie theater. I see at least a movie a week these days. Like I'm on it all the time. I love going to the theaters. It's so nice to like witness a movie how it's supposed to be seen. And you're not on your phone, you're not worried about other shit, you got a tub of joy in your lap and you just get to munch on it the whole time, baby. Oh my gosh.
So nice.
It's such a nice thing to be able to go and be like, oh, I'm so glad I saw Furiosa in the theaters. Like that's where I should have seen it.
That movie was awesome. That was such a shame that was a bomb, dude.
I think it slowly picked up some steam, didn't it? Like it got acclaim and it broke even or whatever. I like how George Miller plays with the saga. It's totally interesting. It's captivating.
I think it did a little bit, but definitely not enough to like. I don't think it broke even. I mean, because it was like a big budget movie. Maybe in other countries, like perhaps it's going to make its money back in like other territories, but I don't think it was a big hit here at all, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a really good movie. Like everybody who saw it that mentioned it to me before I saw it was like, I was impressed. I was surprised and I had a good time.
Me too.
And like I felt the same way.
I went in with, you know, a little skeptical just because, you know, I love Fury Road. And I was like, well, it's not going to be as good as that. So, you know, I'm like, let's see. And it wasn't as good, but it was like, for what it was fucking, I really enjoyed it. I have very little complaints about it.
Yeah. And I like how he films like action scenes even. Like I
Mm-hmm.
like that they're not all boom boom like right there in the middle of it. Some of it you're like 500 yards away on a friggin' hill watching
Mm-hmm.
this shit go down, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I love witnessing stuff like that because that's how it's going to be in real life."
Yep. I thought
Or
so too. It was very refreshing, and like it's not overly edited. You can
mhm.
tell what's happening. That's fucking huge. Like so
Yeah.
many action movies now, like you can't tell what's going on. It's all really
Yeah.
slapdash, whoa, whoa, and like you can tell that they really like he takes some time to like get the shots placed and like so you can tell what's happening.
Yeah, I wasn't lost, and it didn't feel spoon-fed either. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a good time. And something he said really kind of framed how I watched it because I didn't see any of the other ones in the theater ever. But he's like, it's like a story being told from many different perspectives. You know, it's like a biblical story in that sense because it's creating this myth, this whole world
Mm-hmm.
being told from like a bunch of people's perspective. And when I
Yeah,
watched it from that lens, I was like, this is great. I
yeah,
love that perspective because it's like it doesn't have to be right in line. Everything doesn't have to line up perfectly. It's like, you know, this happens, you know, in the distant future, so not all the stories are going to be the same. And I
correct.
just really love that approach to it.
Yeah,
Are you a filmmaker or do you have aspirations? Have you written any scripts or anything like that?
not really. I have some ideas, but I'm not somebody who would want to be like behind or like calling the shots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be in that sort of position. That seems like it would be
Mm.
incredibly stressful to me. Like I've never wanted
Mm-hmm.
to be like a teacher or anybody like that, where it's like you're in control of the dude. I'm not. That's not me, dude. Like
Dude, that's comedy though. You're that in comedy.
no, I'm not. I'm not telling people what to do. Like I'm in control of myself with stand up and stuff like that. Like I write my own stuff and whatnot, but I'm not telling anyone what to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not a directive or whatever.
Yeah.
No, I get that. But I mean, I was a teacher for so long. I taught in so many classrooms that I just used some of those skills on stage, classroom management skills.
Okay. No, that makes sense. There's a lot of people I know who are teachers as well as comics. That's a bit. It really does make sense. Yeah.
It's like I'm trying to engage the whole audience. I'm trying to keep people in line, get their
Mhm.
attention up front, or whatever, you know. And so I'm
Mhm.
like, maybe that's a heavy or a labor intensive way to do comedy in a sense, you know, because you're making the work about the audience as opposed to about the comedy. And that it's not totally looking outwards. It's not always looking outwards,
Yeah.
but I take their in, you know, I take the audience into account. I think it's fun to
Mhm.
play with them and interact and see how they're doing and be true to the moment. I think that's something you're pretty good at from what I've seen is being true
Yeah.
to like the moment and being present on stage.
Oh yeah. I mean, I try to, and like, thankfully, I haven't had to deal with too many like horrendous, audiences where you're just like, whoa, yeah, you have
Mhm.
to at some point deal with that as a comic, but I don't feel I've had to deal with that like an over amount of times. Like anytime you're going to be doing like a bar show somewhere, there's always a chance of that being the case.
Mhm.
So you have to have that skill.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've been pretty lucky in that I haven't like had to do that a whole lot. Like the majority of the time, I'm not having to do that, which is
Right.
nice.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you're also the kind of comic who doesn't uh draw out that kind of audience member. You don't draw out the douchebags that I
Oh
wouldn't
yeah,
imagine that kind of thing happens in when you're performing too much or whatever. There's not a
no,
lot of
no.
heckling.
I mean, there's definitely been exceptions, but for the most part, I've been really lucky with that. But there's been, I mean, I've lost my cool twice for sure. Like I remember like just fucking
Mm.
losing my shit where I'm just like, shut
Mm.
the fuck up, where I just didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And like luckily both times people were on my side because I could go either way. The audience could be like,
Mhm.
oh, he lost his cool, oh my god, and like
Yee.
they're like not on board with you anymore. But luckily the times
Mhm.
that I both like I only really really lost my shit twice, and like
Mm.
luckily it was with hecklers who were like so over the top, like shitty, that the audience was
Mhm.
fully on board with me just being like fuck off.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's happened to me a few times, and sometimes, like you said, you can kind of build your little audience army of folks who are like, yeah, fuck that guy, he was a dick or whatever, and so it's like fun to play with that element. And if you can do it in a skillful way that doesn't make the heckler, because again, I don't even want to make the heckler feel like shit.
No.
I want him to feel like a little shit and be like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have done that. But most hecklers think they're making the show better.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's like, what? Oh, that sucks. Yeah. All these friggin' clips just make people think that, oh, yeah, I should heckle or whatever. And it's like, that's not it at all. One of the times I lost it the most, one of the times I still think about and felt bad, it was in Korea, and I opened by speaking in Korean some. And there was a Korean guy in the audience, and he goes, your Korean sucks. Like, off the jump. And I'm like, ugh. And I was like, hurt. You know, like I'm a pretty sensitive individual, and I just wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
Of course, I should have been, because it's like I'm speaking the language poorly in its country, and there's of course going to be people letting me know that it's not the best. But he's like, "Your Korean sucks," and I went off. I felt bad, and I was like, I don't even remember what I blacked out and got mad at the guy. Nothing bad or horrible happened. But afterwards, he's like, oh, man, I'm sorry. He's like, I just lived in L.A. I went to the Comedy Store or whatever, and I thought that was part of the show, or you should do that or whatever. And I'm like, no, okay. Yeah. Also, my Korean does suck. So it was just one of those things that I'm like, okay, have to be more prepared for that. You know, moving forward, if you take those kind of risks, you have to be prepared for the blowback, whatever they might be.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Was it your first set that you'd ever done in Korea?
No, it wasn't. It was towards the latter half of my time in Korea or whatever. I lived there for 6 or 7 years, something like that.
Wow.
And yeah, I lived in Seoul. It was like a giant different city from Eugene.
Yeah.
And it was where I started to do stand-up, actually. There was an open mic at an Aussie bar, and we just kind of kept going, did monthly shows at a Canadian bar, brought over headliners once or twice a year. That's where I met people like Kyle Kinane or Baron Vaughn, like Glenn Wool, Tom Rose, a lot of great comedians we brought over to do a lot of these people had never even been out of the States.
Wow.
And so I was like tour guide, show producer, co-host, feature, doorman for all this stuff. And that was kind of our, you know, just how we did things in Korea. And it was very fun to have a DIY scene, you know. It's like, it's nice to be a part of something that you're building. Absolutely. But it's also nice. There's so many times now where I'm just so thankful to have one job. You know, it's so nice when you're just doing one thing. I got to feature at Eugene's Comedy Club for Scott Cease last week.
Oh, nice. That guy's so nice.
Dude, Scott was a gem.
Yes.
Total gem. So kind, cool, and friggin' hilarious. So much funnier than I anticipated.
He's funny as hell. Yeah, dude. Because you never know with the people who get big on like TikTok and stuff. Like his videos on there are funny as hell. But I remember I went to go see him in San Francisco 2 years ago, and then it was funny as shit. And then I got to host for him the next time, and he was so nice and funny as shit. And like I didn't know that he had started. He did stand up before, so that was what he was. He's good at it. He's really good at it. So that was a damn treat, because you never know with them TikTok and Instagram people. So that was a nice treat. He's just such a sweetheart. He was the best part of that Cocaine Bear movie.
He was great in Cocaine Bear. Yeah, a couple of people brought their Cocaine Bear merch. He signed it and all that jazz. That's awesome. So it was super cool to get to talk with him. And he's from Baltimore. I got a friend in Baltimore he kind of knew from the comedy scene and stuff like that. So it's just like he remembered you and Jesse from the Punchline and stuff in Sacramento and San Fran. I think you guys worked with them or something like that. And he was just like such a good dude. And it's so nice when you do work with folks like that and you're like, oh, this is a nice weekend.
Exactly.
This is a good gig. And it's nice just to have that job. Oh my gosh. Dude. The best job in comedy is the feature job. I mean, money aside, 20 minutes in front of a paying crowd who's ready. It's like, ooh, let's have some fun, folks.
Exactly, dude. I agree.
And it's so nice to be able to have that in like a smaller town now, because when you get a chance to do that in most places. I mean,
Exactly.
really.
Yeah, there's this older comic in San Francisco named Larry Bubbles Brown that I love, and he's like, he could headline, but he's just like, I'm cool featuring. Like, he's been featuring for fucking decades, dude. And he's
Yeah.
like, he features for like huge. You know, he always gets requests from Dana Carvey and like Dave Attell. And
Yeah.
when Norm would come through, Norm would always ask for him because he's just like such an awesome dude to work with. He's such a nice guy. He's super funny, but he doesn't really have these aspirations to headline. He's just like, I'm cool featuring. It's like, sure, I'll do 20 in front of Carvey and make like $3,000. Sure. I'm like, damn, fuck, that sounds amazing.
That's one hell of a friggin' weekend,
yeah,
dude. Do you have bigger comedic aspirations? Would you like to be a headliner on the weekends and stuff like that?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, we'll see what the hell happens. I'm doing my first Punchline headlining gig in October, so that was cool.
Oh, hell yeah!
But it's like a weeknight on a Wednesday, October 9th.
Is that kind of like the tryout?
I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not sure what it is. I think I mean, I'm also featuring that whole weekend, so I think they were just like, well, if he's around and he can do it, we'll see if he can draw anybody, you know?
Right.
So I think that's what it is, and it's cool to be given a shot, and I'm definitely going to be trying to sell tickets to that. But yeah, I'm going to be there the whole rest of that weekend, featuring for Caitlin Palufo, who I featured for in Alameda a couple months ago, and she's awesome. So that'll be a good weekend for sure.
That's so fun.
But yeah, I would love to do some more like weekend headlining stuff. But yeah, I just don't have any big like internet. You know, you got to have like Instagram followers, all that stuff, and I have the time, but who the hell? I can't really get the numbers out, you know?
Yeah, and it's like sometimes I'll get on a good roll posting and a little more, you know, regular and that kind of stuff, but I just find that it drains me so much if I'm on it for too long, if I'm trying to play that game too much. It doesn't feel good, and
it gets depressing.
Yeah, it sucks. And so it's like, okay, I feel like I want to get in a nice place and then make some plans and put some routine in front of me, and then I'm like, okay, and now I'll do 3 posts a week or whatever, you know, this kind of thing, and whatever. But I just haven't gotten there yet, and I'm learning to be kinder with myself about that, because I'm just doing the things that are in front of me and within arm's reach.
And it's so easy to beat yourself up about like, oh, I'm not doing this right, and you know, because there's so many ways to like get seen online. Me, I maybe my ambitions aren't high enough. I'm just very much like, I just want to have fun with it. You know, I don't think about like the time of day I'm posting or like. I also am all over the place with the sort of stuff I post. Like, I don't just post clips. I don't just post. I think they want you to just do one thing. And like that seems to be the stuff that gets the most traction, is when, all right, you're a video poster, and I don't always just do that. I make a picture. I you know, I'm all over the board with it, because like my interests kind of jump back and forth. So I don't think that's good in terms of getting all the views, but I don't really give a shit. It's just like I'm trying to have a good time with it. So yeah.
Same. A lot of I totally echo a lot of what you're saying right there. It's how can I have fun with this? How can I do comedy in a way that makes me joyous? How can it be fun for other people? And I really enjoy your online presence. I like your variety of stories and posts and things like that. I think, and I share a lot of interests as well. You know, movies are huge. Like, I could talk about movies all day. I could also have a movies pod. I just want to talk about movies. Like, that's my go-to. When I see somebody at a mic, I'm like, oh my God, did you see
Me too.
Longlegs this weekend or whatever? You know, it's like so fun. Did you see Longlegs?
I did. I was actually pretty disappointed with it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think I saw some of you post about it. Yeah. Why didn't you? What were you disappointed with?
I mean, I thought the marketing for it was fucking amazing. I loved the trailers. I loved the like little viral things that it like. Did you see there was billboards here in LA that were like, they had this phone number to call, and you called it, and like Nicolas Cage's character would like say something creepy to you, and I'm like, I'm a sucker for shit like that. I love it.
Yeah.
So like the build up for it was so good that I just felt it couldn't live up to it. It was one of those movies where like if I just seen it, you know, on like Shudder or something, some site without any sort of like pump up to it, I would have been like, that was good. But I mean, I think the it was just too much of an anticipation, and like it felt kind of like it was okay. And I also, I don't want to get into too many spoilers for people who haven't seen it, but in the trailers and things, they don't show Nicolas Cage at all, which I thought was brilliant. And so you're like, oh, fuck, he's gonna be really scary. But I thought in the movie he looked kind of stupid, and like
he was weird looking.
Yeah, he looked weird, but not in like to me, I didn't think it was scary. It looked kind of goofy, and like I was like, maybe they didn't show him because they knew it kind of looked dumb. But it worked. It worked in their favor because you're like, oh shit, it's gonna be fucking freaky, and I didn't think it was. There's elements to it that were great, like the cinematography was awesome. That whole scene in the barn was beautiful. But overall, I don't know. It just didn't really work for me in terms of like scares, and tension, and stuff.
Yeah, I've heard some similar, criticism of it, and I think that's legit. I think it sounds like the advertising team did their job too well.
It's true. It's true. It's kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the high point of a movie is the trailer, and I'm oh, that's all I needed to see. I needed to see 2 minutes and 8 seconds of that movie, and you showed me 90% of it.
Yeah, dude. There's like one of my favorite examples of that is there's this movie called Tucker and Dale versus Evil, and the trailer is so good, but it gives away every single joke, every funny punchline in the movies in that trailer, and it's like, oh, dude. So like it ruins the entire movie because you know exactly what's gonna happen in it. You're like, motherfucker. Like if I hadn't watched this 2-minute trailer, this 90-minute movie would have been 1,000 times better.
Totally. Yeah. I think I remember like a Letterman sketch with, what was it? Samuel L. Jackson and Kevin Spacey, the interrogator?
Oh, yeah. I think it was, Spacey and Jackson.
Yeah, and it was the same kind of trailer, but the whole joke of the sketch was like, here's the next twist, and then the next twist, and the next twist. They showed like 6 twists in the preview, and it's like, why are we... I'll watch a preview for 40 seconds. I'll start it, and then I'll be like, okay, I don't want to know anymore. I'm either on board with the vibes or not.
Yeah.
And so whatever. It's so much fun. I've recently gotten more into horror as well, and it's like, ooh, this. Well, then I'm a good guy to
talk to, man.
Oh yeah.
One movie that I thought the trailer was not great, but the movie was great, is one that just came out called Oddity, and the trailer is very standard. You know, I was just like, it's gonna be another like ghost movie, and then the movie's great. It's really creepy. Highly recommend that one. So yeah, sometimes you just never know.
I jumped into it recently with Talk to Me. I didn't know anything really.
Oh, that was great.
Talk to Me. Dude, Talk to Me was so cool. Like it freaked me. I couldn't even watch it all because I'm such a little baby boy.
It was great though, wasn't it?
This. Yeah, I friggin' loved it. It was terrifying. I guess I thought of Longlegs also because there was a scene or two that was similar in some ways. The violent self-inflicted violence.
Oh yes. Okay.
But I really like Talk to Me, and it makes me curious about what these 2 YouTubers from Australia are going to do. Maybe they'll do a breakdancing movie next.
Yeah. Maybe a biopic about ray gun. From the directors of Talk to Me comes the complete ray gun biography. Yeah, that'd be amazing, dude. But Talk to Me was one of those ones where the premise is like, it's a possession movie, and you're like, I've seen this before, but they did it completely different. Like it was, I've never seen a possession movie that did it like that. And I especially thought the first half of that movie was just incredible. Like the scenes where they played the possession thing as like a game, like at a party.
Game.
And it actually like completely makes sense to me that like certain people would treat it that way. If you're just kind of like, this is a goof, we're going to do this when we're drunk or high or whatever. It was fucking awesome. I was like, I know people who would do that.
For sure.
It was very effective, I thought.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I was I talk to anybody I can about it because I'm like, oh yeah,
Great
I
movie.
kind of want to watch it again, but I'm also like terrified. I don't want to see that
Yeah.
foot scene again.
Yeah. I think that was my favorite. That was my favorite horror movie of that year. That was That was 2022, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure.
Maybe or
So I
three.
think I
Yeah,
think it was a couple years ago, and I was like, man, that one was really fucking good.
yeah, that one jumped out of nowhere for me. If you like horror, next time you see Derek Sheen or Kanane, they're huge horror guys. I talk with both of them about horror when I can, and it's like, ooh, that's a fun one. It's like Derek gave me a bunch of different movies. I forget them. I
Dude,
forget them
Derek
all,
rules.
of course.
When I was in Alaska,
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, him and I went and did a show like way outside of Anchorage in like Homer, and we had to drive like 5 hours together. And he was like, we were just, we're both big horror heads. And he was talking about a lot of like horror books and things like that. And we're just talking about old like 70s movies and shit. And like, I love his bit about, he has a story about being like, God, how old was he? 13. And he gets a fucking phone call on his birthday from Ed Gein, serial killer that they based like fucking Norman Bates off of, and
Jeez.
Leatherface.
How did he get a phone call from this guy?
Because he was like a kid. He was obsessed with serial killers when he was a kid, and his parents like figured out like, oh, Ed Gein is in this like minimum security mental institute, and like they like talked to the people at the mental institute. Were like, hey, can he call our son on his birthday? And this was like in the 80s or something.
Oh my god!
And so he got a fucking phone call from Ed Gein when he was a little kid, which is so fucking crazy.
Dude, that is ridiculous. That is the start of a great movie right there.
Absolutely,
come on now,
100%.
That is such a great like Act 1 moment. Oh my word!
One of the only like the movie storylines I've got kicking around in my head is like, man, I would like to write a screenplay of this. Is like, have you ever seen the movie Fright Night?
It keeps popping up on Max, but I haven't watched it. It's from the 80s. It's about a haunted house.
It's this kid. No, it's about this kid who he has a new next door neighbor that moves in that's a vampire, and like nobody believes him, and he goes to this horror movie host, this old, how they back in the 50s and 60s, they have like, a guy dressed up as Dracula who's like, ooh, you're going to watch my spooky movie. So he goes to this like old horror movie host and like thinks that this guy will believe him. And the guy's like, totally doesn't believe him. But just to like kind of fucking, he's like, all right, I'm not, because the key says, I'll pay you like a few $100s. He's like, well, okay, whatever. I'll help you out. And so he kind of like, ends up teaming up with this kid to take out this vampire that like moves next door. But I have an idea of like a kid who's like a movie vlogger. He makes up YouTube. He's like a YouTube reviewer, and he's obsessed with horror movies. And there's all these like serial murders happening in the town, which coincide with these really obscure old like Italian horror movies, or all these things like, oh, this murder. But none of the cops know that because they haven't seen the movies.
They don't watch Fellini.
Yeah, they're like, oh fuck, that's like this killing in this Dario Argento movie, and so he has to team up with like, sort of a similar thing. Like he convinces like another like a horror. It's almost a rip,
movie head,
so, who's like knows what he's talking about, like a horror host, to like can go team up with him to like take this guy down or whatever.
Yeah,
this seems like a fun thing that I could throw some references in and stuff.
Right, beat it out. Do the Save the Cat beat sheet for that thing, and then see what comes of it. You know, have you read Save the Cat? Are you Save the Cat?
No. What's that?
Oh, Save the Cat is a book about writing movies. It's super straightforward beat sheet. Like each movie has like, I forget how many beats it is, like 21 different beats, but they're all like, it's like Dark Night of the Soul, Near Death Experience, whatever it is, another take on Dan Harmon's Story Circle, but just in a different kind of way, know. And it's become huge. Save the Cat. They got Save the Cat for movies. They got Save the Cat for TV. They got Save the Cat for books.
Okay.
And so it's a little, it's formulaic, but there's nothing wrong with formulas. Start with the formula, do
Exactly.
the thing, get it out there, and then fucking do whatever you want.
And then you can twist it around once you have the formula locked in.
It's like, oh, how do I get it to a 1 page? And so it's kind of talks about some of the like real nitty gritties of writing a movie, because you're like, how the fuck do I write a movie? So it's like, I would say read Save the Cat, read Story by McKee. Those are the two good ones, or not the only two good ones, but those would be a good starter pack.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as like getting off your tuchus and writing a movie and stuff like that.
It's a good suggestion.
Because I had a similar conversation with Scott Cease, because I was like, what would your movie be about? And he kind of told me about it, and I really liked it. I was like, okay, well, you got the perfect job to write a movie. You're a comedian. You work only weekend nights. Give yourself
and he just
that
wrote a book,
schedule.
didn't he? He just wrote a book.
Yeah, but that's like that was like a project for him that's kind of a coffee table book, similar to like his whole online screw work vibe.
Yes.
And that kind of thing. I was like, oh man, we were like at our last show of the weekend, and we were kind of like, oh, this will be nice when it's done. It's like, oh yeah, even though you love it and you're having fun doing it, I was like, you hate work so much that you can't even stand doing your dream job.
Yes, totally.
And so it's like I've got a movie or two that I've gotten almost to the first act break, and I wrote a TV show over COVID. So it's like it's so fun. It feels so good. It's so gratifying in a way that comedy isn't. Comedy's super gratifying, immediate gratification. You get to go on stage with a joke you just wrote. Boom, you're doing it. It's amazing. But with like writing a script, you're like, I wrote a page today. I wrote another page today. I wrote 2 pages today. And in 3 months, you got a movie, or you got a first half of a season. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, that feels good. Like that feels good to actually produce something like that. Nobody's it's honestly, it feels like so much harder to get people to read stuff than it is to actually write it.
Yeah. Totally.
Getting it into the right hands, somebody who can be constructive, somebody who you could work with or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a really hard thing. Oh my gosh, what did I just watch? Baby Reindeer. Have you seen Baby Reindeer?
No, I haven't. Is that dope?
Have you heard about it?
I have heard about it.
It was good. I kind of watched it in like a couple days. I don't typically watch like that, but it was cool. Like, as somebody who's like written a TV show for myself, to see someone do it, who was also a comedian, it was pretty fun. And it was like, I like a stalker story. Yeah. And it takes some good twists, and the guy tells his own story in an interesting way. I give it a go. I was happy to give it a go on Netflix.
Yeah, I've had several people suggest that to me, so I need to give that a watch.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
Okay.
Or weird, but I was glad I watched it. Now the lady's suing Netflix.
Oh shit! Like this? Yeah, that's not the real story. That sort of thing, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the first line on the show was something like, "These are real events," or "This isn't a story," or "This isn't," something like that. Kind of like in Fargo,
Totally.
But it's like, no, that's just part of the story. That's just part of the fictional aspect of a lot of shows like that. So whatever. But that's what they're kind of harping on, from what I read.
See. Okay.
So again, I could talk about comedies all day long, but this is also a podcast about health and all of that. And I know that recently you have, in the past, I don't know, year or two, gone on a bit of a health journey yourself. Is that right? Can you tell us more?
Yeah. Man, I'm always so hesitant to use the word journey unless it's like a hobbit, story or some shit. But yeah.
Sorry, you walked somewhere healthfully.
No, it's kind of because like it's good, but also like it was brought about by a lot of anxiety, where like I was having panic attacks and stuff like that. So I was like, dude, what can I like? I noticed the anxiety would get worse when I would drink. Like the next day, my anxiety would be even more ramped up. Like I'd be waking up in the middle of the night. Like if I had more than 4 or 5 drinks or something a night, I'd wake up in the middle of the night with my heart like pounding, and I was like, I must have a heart issue or something. So it led me down this road of like really bad health anxiety and like hypochondria, where I thought I had all kinds of things. And I've been to the doctor so many times, and they're like, "You're good, nothing's wrong, everything's fine." But it's just, you don't think logically when you're dealing with like really heavy anxiety, and like I'm still not. Definitely gotten better, but I'm still like not fully over it. And I know it's going to take a long, long time. Like recently, I've still been like, had like most of it lately has been revolving around like heart issues and stuff like that. And like tomorrow I've got a fucking appointment for an echocardiogram, which was booked months ago, just to like, because they're like, we think you're probably fine, but let's just rule this out. And like I've done a bunch of things. Like I had like a 2-week Holter monitor. They're like, nothing weird's there, you're fine. All the stuff that, all the cholesterol tests, all these things that should convince me that I'm all right. It's just taking, more time than it should, or, because it's so weird, because I've never dealt with this sort of like mentality before until like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And
when you say mentality, do you mean like your own mentality?
Well, like I was never worried about health stuff at all, and then like once I had that like fear in me, it like really ramped up, because I have had issues with OCD in the past. I think that's part of it, obsessive compulsive disorder. And that kind of got locked into the whole like health thing. So I'm like, once I'm worried about something, I like constantly like checking myself, I'm checking my pulse. Yeah. And then I think it tricks my brain into thinking there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I've had so many symptoms that are like, or sensations, however you want to put it, that aren't like real, but it's because I'm constantly thinking about it. It like amplifies all the like sensations I get, like heart palpitations. I had a really bad bout of like, for about a month, I had horrible like twitching in my legs. And it's just because I was so focused on it, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. It would just keep happening. Yeah. And that's happened a lot. And like, there's been so many things that have come and gone that I should realize, like, that's brought about by that for sure. The like over, dwelling on it, and it ramps up your nervous system. It gets all fucking discombobulated. So in that time period that this has been going on, I've made a ton of like dietary changes. I'm really not much of like a workout person, but I've been going on walks a ton. I go on all kinds of walks, and that's pretty much all I do, besides little stuff like sit-ups, push-ups, things like that. That's pretty much all I do. I'm not a weights guy. I hate lifting weights. I'm just like, oh, it hurts, So yeah. I probably should do some, just to like, because my arms are all fucking skinny and shit now that I've lost a bunch of weight. But my legs look good, but but
there you go.
Yeah. Other than that, like it's like it's been dealing with a lot of like fear and like so it's unfortunately sort of a fear-based thing, but I have been making a lot of choices that in the long run are good for me. And when I go to the doctor now, they're like, yeah, all the blood tests are great, you're doing awesome. So I should be less worried about my health, but it's still just sort of ingrained in me, and it's taking me more time than it should to get over.
Totally. Should schmud, and I totally get that. It's I feel similarly in some ways as well. Like every little thing is like, oh no, that's a sign of my impending doom. Like this is the end. This is how I die. I die from a hangnail.
Boom. Yeah.
And it's my cats are outside, and we put flea medicine on them recently, and then for like a while, everything on my body felt like a flea. I'm like, oh no, there's a bug. That's a bug. That's a bug. And so it's like every single thing.
Feel it, right? Like you're feeling that. Oh man, I get that real bad. I hadn't ever before this time period, and like it's really, really strange and like disconcerting to like really, really feel that stuff, and like then have the doctors be like, nope, there's nothing going on. Because like one of the craziest ones was like, like after I'd had a couple of pretty heavy panic attacks, I started getting just really awful headaches, and they were just constant. And I was convinced I had like a brain tumor or something. And so I must have read something online that said this is what a brain tumor headache is like, and you can't, like, when you lay down, it gets worse. And so with that in my head, like literally every time I would lay down to go to sleep, my head would just like, it would hurt so bad. And like when I'd start to fall asleep, I would get these like electric shocks that would like wake me up. And they call them brain zaps, and it's like it's your nervous system trying to like protect you. It's like a really faulty thing, it's a
shitty
faulty
way
mechanism
to protect you.
And it's like but it's just like one of those things where like if you're dwelling on this like fear, like you just get completely overtaken by it, and it really does mess up your body a lot. So
The power of like psychosomatic experiences can be overwhelming. So, and it's not, I'm not saying it's all psychosomatic, but it is enhanced, right? It's like your brain pushes on the gas on those experiences that you might not have otherwise. And it's so frustrating. And I honestly think that one of the things that has reduced that type of occurrence for me is exercising and having something to focus my physical self on. Like that's when I'm able to enter flow pretty easily, is when I'm working, when I'm in my body, when I'm exercising, when I'm feeling that. That's and then at the end of the day, I feel like it calms my nervous system a little bit just naturally because I've worked out and a lot of like actual pushing and like real work and real fatigue, as opposed to this just dry fatigue we feel all the fucking time. Like, what is that? What is that? Just depression? Maybe it's just depression. I don't know. Do you have that? Does everyone have that? Or am I just projecting my dry fatigue?
I'm generally a pretty happy person, but like when I get sad, I do get very sad. And it's like, so, but generally like, I'm generally not a super sad person, but it for sure comes in waves, and it had definitely got worse with anxiety stuff being so like ramped up. That didn't help at all. And honestly, I think what you're saying in terms of battling anxiety with like workouts and things like that, I think that is a big thing. Because a lot of the stuff that I've watched online or read online or like that's a way of dealing with it for sure. Like that's what I've been doing is like going out for walks and stuff to kind of like my daily like, no, your body's okay, your heart's fine, or else you wouldn't be able to be going on these long ass walks all the time. And so it's just
totally. I think today, literally right before we talked, I watched a video like 10 ways to calm your nervous system or something like that. Like, because what I'm essentially trying to do in my life is just find balance and find ways to be able to move through different spaces fluidly. That's not always something I'm very skillful at. Sometimes when you're on and you're like, oh, I can kind of move and groove and I'm feeling good. Yeah. And then other times you're like, oh, it takes so much work to go to the grocery store.
Totally. Oh, yeah.
And so I'm just like, okay, how do I get myself in that space where I'm more open to these fluid interactions and not afraid of things or not anxious? Some guy at work said, fuck you to me the other day as well. And that like popped open a can of anxiety that I didn't know was quite there at my job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, just gotta like calm down. And that's kind of like kept me in more after work and stuff lately. I'm just like, I just need to chill a little, and that's okay. Just had a birthday, did some shows, did Oregon Country Fair, did a lot of stuff. So it's like I am also like grappling with an ADHD potential diagnosis that I may have or may not have. But it's also one of those things that, had I known or thought of this earlier, I think I would have been a lot easier on myself.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure how to kind of combat that now. Do you have any ways that you like when you do feel anxiety coming on? Do you have any things that you do to help yourself move through those times?
Well, that's what it's so funny. I mean, I've been asking a bunch of people for like advice and stuff, and I don't want to hear the breathing thing ever again, honestly. Like, because I see everyone's like, you just gotta breathe. That's it. It's like, okay, like, all right. Sometimes it's helped, sometimes it hasn't.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the cure for me. You know, I do. No, it definitely gets worse when I'm just stay in and don't do anything. When I isolate myself, like I went like a week where I was basically like homebound. This was like early on. This is like over a year ago in San Francisco, where I was just kind of like so depressed and just like convinced that I was going to die, that I was just like, I'm staying in and just in my room. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't sleeping. And my mom deals with a lot of like anxiety stuff and panic stuff. And she pretty much has been agoraphobic for a long time. And like, I was like, I can't let this happen to me. So because I do think part of it might be genetic. I don't know. But I always do feel better when I get out and at least go for a walk or something. And though I do have limits when it comes to like social stuff, like I'll be out for a while, then I'll just be like, I gotta go, I gotta peace out. And
That's it.
yeah, I have a time frame, which kind of sucks, but at least I got out to begin with. And I think that makes me feel better that I at least, got out and did something.
Definitely does.
That's been one of the reasons that I moved to LA, is just because I was like, well, this is going to kind of force me to restart. I got to go out and go to shows and meet people and stuff like that. I got to get better at that. And so I have to push myself to be more social, and it doesn't always work, but at least I try. Like yesterday, I went to a mic, and I should have talked to more people. I didn't, but at least I was there. And it's just it's a stepping thing. Like you're one step forward. It's like sometimes it's just good to get out there, and like at least I did that. So yeah.
Totally. I go back to this piece of advice I heard Gary Goldman say on a podcast or something somewhere, because he deals with all this stuff too. And Great Depression is a great special, right? So good. It deals with mental health in a way that specials don't typically. So I really loved it. Big inspiration. But he's like, just go for an hour. Just go for an hour. Wherever you're going, get out of the house, be out of the house for an hour. That's all you need to do. Just be out of the house and for me, I keep that in mind when I'm really like when I'm fighting it, that tells me that I want to do something that I'm not doing. But if it's like, I just want to stay in, then it's okay to listen to that.
Totally. Yeah.
But like going for an hour is something that I try to do pretty often now. And it's like, okay, where's the hour where I don't have to stay 3 hours to get on stage. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the time of day I can do that? And you also mentioned your mom. There's this podcast I used to listen to called Invisibilia, and really good about the invisible things that shape our lives. I think it was an NPR podcast, and season 1 there was an episode called Entanglement, and it was about how we're entangled with other people, right? And how just so connected we are. And there's this term called mirror touch synesthesia. Have you heard of synesthesia?
I have heard of that, yes.
So synesthesia is like, experiencing senses in different ways, sensory things differently. And mirror touch synesthesia is literally feeling what the people around you feel. So like you were going to be very connected and plugged into the people around you, and you will like feel what they feel physically, mentally, emotionally. And it really goes into this really interesting story between a mother and a daughter, and how hard this daughter was fighting not to the mother had mirror touch synesthesia, and the daughter was fighting so hard to not be like her mother. And for her mother to leave the house was such an ordeal. Like she had to like hang curtains over the windows, couldn't go out. And then she was also a rich had a beautiful artist, made visual artistry, visual art, blah blah blah, whatever that word is. And I just think it's so interesting that we can be so physically like impacted by the people around us, and it might not be as intense as a diagnosis or being called mirror touch synesthesia, but I mean that's why everyone's talking about vibes right now.
Yeah.
Like vibes are essentially that, right?
Yeah. I actually think with my mom, that's a huge part of it, because her health in the last few years has really taken a dive. And I think a big thing is like she's with her current husband is pretty much housebound, and like his health is horrible, and he never goes out, and he never like exercises, and so she's basically just doing the same thing, and like kind of allowing it to bring her down too. And it's like I think that's a big factor, and so I think that's for sure true.
Yeah,
In her case.
there's a lot to it, and I know, like my mom and I have I live in a little cottage in a backyard in my mom's backyard, in my childhood home, in my childhood backyard is where I live, and it's kind of cool in some ways, and it's fraught in others, obviously. And I love my mom so dearly, and she had back surgery not too long ago, and so I was there for that, and it's nice to be here to kind of support her through this older stage in her life. But what is like literally getting her up in the morning is going to swim class with all her lady friends at the Equahala pool and stuff. So it's like they get to go out and have fun in the morning. They're stretching in the water and doing all sorts of stuff. And I just hear how joyful she is. She's like, "Oh my God, Rudy, you got to meet my teacher. You got to meet Val. Val's so cool." Yeah. Like Val is like this girl I should meet or whatever. But I went to the Scandinavian festival this weekend, and Val was like working at the Viking brewery in a whole Viking costume. And I was like, Are you Val? My mom told me you were going to be here. And so I met Val, and it's just like, it's so important who we surround ourselves with. It has such a huge impact. And so that's why I'm trying to like have conversations like this at the very least with people, because I think it's so important. I hate this idea of this schleppy comedian who's never happy, who doesn't take any steps to make their life better. Because I know I'm a better comedian when I feel better, when I'm in a good space, when I'm feeling happy and joyful and connective, when I see people and want to hug them. I'm not hugging people right now. You know what I mean? Like not a lot. I'll give hugs and stuff, but it's like, okay, I need to get somewhere that like puts me in that space a little more, and I'm just trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I'm fully with you on that too. It's like a lot of people look, at least whenever it seems like that's a stereotype when like comics are like sad or something, going through something bad, they'll be like, at least you get some material out of it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's ever happened for me, dude. Every time I'm like going through like a traumatic thing, I'm like, man, this would be nice if that was the case. It never happened, dude. Like I never write when I'm fucking sad as shit. It sucks.
Yeah.
You hear all these like stereotypes, like, man, you're gonna get a new hour out of this. Like, I got nothing, dude. What are you talking about?
Nope.
It's not what I write about. I don't know.
2 months of sadness, and I got 30 seconds of jokes.
Yeah,
maybe.
Dude. It sucks.
So how do you write? Are you a writer that's like on stage, or do you sit down?
I wish I was better at just sitting down and doing it. Like, I'm really envious of people who are like, I devote 3 hours a day to just sitting down and writing. I'm like, God damn. Because I can't come up with shit that way. Like, I literally just have to have like, I think the times I come up with stuff most are long car rides and right before I fucking go to bed. It's like it's almost always those two. And like, you just gotta I just pop into something pops in my head, I write it down, and then I'll add to it later, probably. But yeah, I'm not, and also I wish I was better at just coming up with it on the stage. I'm not great at that either. But it just kind of has to happen. It's, I'll go through these long, 3 weeks I won't write anything, and then like, in a day, I'll write 5 or 6 things. It's one of those things where like I'll have these routes where I'm like, God damn, like nothing's coming up, and then one particular day, I'll have all kinds of stuff. So it really comes in like spurts for me.
I was wishing the other day that I had a whiteboard in the shower. Because that's where it happens for me, is the shower. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna remember that one when I get out.
And then you don't. Dude,
1 out of 8 times I do.
I've probably lost hours of material because of that, dude. Where like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I'll remember to write that down, and I fucking I never
I'm like
do.
naked with a soapy ass, and I'm like laughing in the shower, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah, and then it's just gone, and you're like, "What the hell, dude?" And then it's so funny. People will be like, "Oh, if it was any good, you would have remembered." Like, that's not. No, who knows? It could have been. It could have been really good, and I just, for some reason, it's gone. Who the hell knows?
Yeah. I'm also getting more on board with the idea of what is it, parallel thought,
Mm-hmm.
in that like jokes are flying through the air. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? They're in the ether. There's
Yeah.
ideas, there's movie ideas, there's jokes, there's punchlines, there's tags. They're floating all around us. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the biggest part of a job of a comedian is capturing them.
Mm-hmm.
Is just finding how to show them to other people. Like taking advantage. I love this like poet. I forget who the poet was, but it's like she would go out in the field without a paper or pen, and she would like go do her work and that kind of thing. And when an idea struck her, she would run. She would run to get her paper,
Yeah.
run to get her writing utensil, and then capture that as like her life depended on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I maybe it was Emily Dickinson or somebody like this, but it was just like such a vivid and powerful image to me. That's like, oh yeah, it's like, because we have our phones, we don't have to run anywhere ever again for the rest of our lives. So it's like, no, let go of that shit and see what happens when it's just you and your brain and some nature or whatever. And that's also when it happens for me, is clipping blackberries and stuff like that. So I have an idea. One of my ideas for like jokes in the gym is a 90-day notebook, and on each one page, and I'm tempting with fate here because maybe it'll get out there and someone will make it before I get a chance to. But one page is mind, one page is body. And every day, because I believe 90 days will change your life. If you make a choice and you take the action for 90 days straight, you will start a new habit. You'll be in a different place. Try to be in the same place at the end of 90 days if you're doing something good for yourself. But just one thing each day. One joke idea, one thought idea, one whatever, and one body thing. What did you do for your body? Did you go for? I walked for 5 minutes. I thought about breathing for 2 minutes. I made a great meal. I did an awesome workout. I went to a spin class or whatever it is. But for 90 days, put something on each side of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at the end, you're going to be somewhere, and you can look back at that and be like, oh, wow, there's so much to draw from in there. And I think it's just such a simple idea that if implemented, I think could be really, really useful. I have 100 notebooks around here, and that kind of thing just
Have you been doing that yourself? Have you been doing that?
Not necessarily. I haven't. I've done so much recording. I don't know about you. Like I've done so many things where I like do I do a journal for 2 months, and then I do a writing journal for 2 months, and then I'll do my notebook, and then I'll do an online journal or whatever. But I've never been good at like sticking with a thing like that for a period of time. I'm pretty good and consistent at the things I love to do, but not necessarily when it comes to record keeping. And that's something that I would like to get better at, but I haven't found the impetus to get better at quite yet.
I used to be, and this is part of like the OCD thing I'm pretty fucking sure I have, is like I used to like write down everything, dude. Whereas like I was obsessed with movies. I had a whole notebook of like every movie I'd gone to see, who wrote it, who directed it, how long it was, what the fucking movie studio was. And then I went through a period where I was super into professional wrestling. And I would write down all the match results. It's like, Rhino versus Taz, winner, Rhino via DQ, or, I was like, pointless. Like, who is this for? But it was like, and I had stacks of these papers of like all these results and like all these movie things. And I was like, some kind of just clicked where I was just like, what is this for? Like, what is the point of this? This just seemed like it's definitely a compulsion thing. And I realized like I got to stop doing that, because it seemed like it just was a waste. I don't know. I was like, nowadays though, especially the last couple of days, I've been like, man, I need to, because I've done a couple movie podcasts recently. They're like, are you on Letterboxd? And I was like, No, because I think I would go nuts with Letterboxd. Like I would just be like obsessed with Letterboxd, or I'm like, oh, I gotta put. I could be on Letterboxd putting in movies I've seen for weeks, dude, and like not hit all the movies I've seen. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that, but it does seem fun in a way.
Is Letterboxd like a step counter for your movies?
Basically, yeah, it's like you list all the movies you've seen, and like you can review them, you can rate them. It's a good way of keeping track of everything you've seen. And that, I mean, back in 10 years ago, I would have been all over this, but now I'm just like, I don't think I want to take the time to like do it, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's why I like the like micro part of it, you know, the micro journaling idea of like, you don't have to do everything, you don't have to be super like hard about whatever, but just like something. I feel like something can keep you accountable and keep you on track. It's kind of like the Duolingo. It's like, how do you gamify stuff like that? It's like what was the show? John Wilson. Did you watch John Wilson's show?
No, how to?
Yes. You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh,
great,
please watch it. Yes. Okay. And because there was one episode where he details about, he showed his notebooks and they were just like tiny little letters of every single thing he did for so long. You know what I mean? And then he went back through it. Oh my God, Chad, please watch it at some point if you get the chance, because some of those episodes are the wildest things. They go places I could never imagine.
Wow. Okay.
And he's got that I think Nathan Fielder was a producer on it.
Yes.
I'm a fan of Fielder as well.
I know Nathan Fielder.
I am a big fan. I think he's doing something very unique with his comedy and his The Curse. What did you think about The Curse?
I didn't see that yet.
Curse was interesting.
Because I mean, I absolutely loved Nathan For You. And they what was the one he did after that? It was the first few episodes. Proposal was like a few of those were, I think, phenomenal. The rehearsal, that's what it was. And like that the first few episodes were amazing, and then I felt it sort of, I don't know, I didn't really like
lost it a bit.
Yeah, it lost me towards the end. And then I heard The Curse was like, I heard very mixed things about it, so I'm like, I do want to see it, but I'm also like, oh man, I don't know.
Yeah, it just feels like one step further back. You know, it's like now it's him as a fictional character, him and Emma Stone, but like doing the same kind of things that he might do in a show, but for like HGTV, and then like taking a step or two back and watching all that unfold, and how weird that would be, and so they do a good job, and it ends it's got an interesting ending, and like you might like the ending if you like a funky thing. It's so hard to know what to say sometimes as far as like giving up spoilers or whatever, but definitely I got Paramount Plus just to watch that show. Essentially it's like just so I could watch it, and because I'm a Nathan Fielder fan, that's why I did it, but it was like, I'm not sure if I love it. It was just like, it was interesting to watch, and I love to watch somebody's career unfold. It's one of the most satisfying things. It's so cool that we get to watch like Jordan Peele and Taika Waititi make movies.
Baby.
Them in the shit, like building and like going somewhere with their work. Have you seen Taika Waititi's 10-minute short that got him like a Oscar? It's like a black and white short. Watch it, find it, and it's on YouTube, and it's like two kids outside of a restaurant. But again, it's like those type of things are seeds that sprout big results, and you see it in the rest of his filmmaking. Absolutely. And so many people, dude, Boy, such a great movie, such a like dream movie to make, you know, about your story at your childhood home, essentially. Like, very cool. Oh, what did I watch? I watched a Norwegian horror movie last night called There's Something in the Barn with Martin Starr. It's like a Netflix, but it takes place in Norway. Martin Starr's the lead, and it's kind of about these barn elves in the barn.
I saw that one.
Yeah,
that was okay. It was okay.
It wasn't great. That's actually a movie idea that I had, but in the friendly version of it. Yeah, because like I'm half Norwegian, and my mom's from there, and I lived there for a year, and it's like I want to do kind of like a barn elf movie, and
Okay.
like the magic of a
Now,
barn
is
elf.
that like a big like mythology over there? Is that like a big thing?
Yeah, elves and the Julenissen Christmas elf and that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
all very, very well known.
Did you see? I'm pretty sure it's Norwegian. Did you see Troll Hunter?
Troll Hunter's very cool.
Dude, that movie
Yes.
ruled. And like one of my favorite things about it was it played as like almost like a travelogue for Norway, like the forests there. I was like, it really made me want to go to Norway because the forests there just looked beautiful, and it just was such a gorgeous like environment that they were shooting that in. I thought that was my favorite part of the movie.
It truly, it's gorgeous. And Norway does a lot of great stuff like that. They're doing a really good job of like Norwegianizing their Netflix offerings. It's like they create the media that's out there in the world, but in a Norwegian style, and so just like to share some of Norwegian culture. And it's kind of paint by numbers in some ways. There's another one called Troll on Netflix, which is fun. But yeah, there's so many cool ideas that Norwegian cinema kind of comes up with, and sometimes they're a little like, I don't know, run of the mill, but it's like, oh, it's from Norway, so that's fun. I'm wearing my Scandinavian festival hat.
Oh shit!
Right
there.
Scandinavian
when
festival.
When did that go down?
This weekend.
Oh
shit! Yeah, it's just down the road, 20 minutes from here, and so it's like there's all sorts of. It's cute. It's a quaint festival that's been going on for 40, 50 years, and there's dancers and Norwegian food and stuff like that. So people dressed as Vikings, all that shit. So
was there any barn elf cosplay?
I didn't see. I mean, there's some elves around for sure. Yeah, people dressed up in elf style, elf garb.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you got going on? What's the rest of your week? You got a ton of shows? Are you ready to do stuff?
Let's see. Tomorrow, what am I doing? I'm going to a concert. I'm doing the doctor tomorrow. I'm getting an echocardiogram. Probably gonna be fine. I mean, I did a Holter monitor a couple months ago, and they were like, "You're good." I've not had one thing with my heart where they're like anything is off, but I still have these like palpitations, like chest pain, but it could be like. It most likely is anxiety, and because no doctors. It's literally either that or there's like a conspiracy against me from like 10 different doctors, which is probably not happening. And probably not. And so then Wednesday I'm going to a concert. See this band I like called Psychic Mirrors. They're this like Florida-based funk group. Fun. And they're dope as hell, so that'll be good. And what am I doing? Oh, I'm going to see a show Thursday, Talkies, with James Adomian and Henry Phillips.
Oh, nice.
And they're great.
James is great. Yeah. James he was another guy we brought to Korea. He's awesome.
Oh, yeah. He's so good.
Yeah, man. He nails it. He's like, oh, yeah. You see him on stage and you're like, what a performer.
Mm-hmm. He's funny as hell. Like, I saw this one show where he was like, he ended. They must have had it pre-planned, but like the audience didn't know that. Eddie Pepitone during Eddie Pepitone's set, James was like yelling as like a character from the crowd, and people are just like, "Who's this fucking asshole?" But it's like James, like you racist shit, like. And so once I recognized that it was James Adomian, I was like, "Oh, they must have like planned this out or something," because then they were just like yelling back and forth for the whole set. It was fucking hilarious.
That's so good.
But most people, I don't think, knew that was James Adomian. Like they were just like, because he was kind of hidden in the crowd, like it was great.
No, he's good. James is awesome. He's killer. Cool. Nice. Well, kind of as we kind of finish up, get past the hour, one of the questions I tend to ask is like, what do you wish your younger self knew? Ooh. Like what advice would you give your early comedy self, or what do you wish that you had like embodied sooner as a comedian or performer?
Well, and I'm still dealing with it. Like I'm still, I want to get, cause it's scary to like, really fucking push yourself to like be weird and out there and physical and stuff like that. Those are always the jokes that I tend to have the most fun with. And it's still the scariest ones for me to do, because like when they bomb, it's just like, embarrassing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, with other jokes, you can sort of play it off like, eh. But then, like, when there's a joke
Whatever.
when you're like fucking laying on the ground and it's like you eat shit,
Yeah.
it's like, well, there's not really a way to play it off. You know, you just kind of have to own it and be like, you didn't like it. Oh well.
Yeah.
And I want to tell my current self as well, like, just don't be afraid to like try that stuff because like when it works out, it's the most fun for me, and it's still the most nervous I get, and like having dealing with my current like anxiety and shit, like, and it's even harder for me to like really push myself to do that stuff, and I just want to like let myself know that it's gonna be okay, and it's worth the risk because when those pay off, they're the most satisfying, and they're generally the bits that I've done that get the most acclaim and like the most people, you know, and like they don't always work. There's been a ton of these types of jokes I've done where I do them once and I never do them again,
Yeah.
but at least I tried,
Totally.
and like you have to go for it, and like I'm still telling myself that, and I want to tell myself the same thing in the past.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like don't be
I
afraid to try it.
I love that. And I've found that a lot of the times when people answer that question, they would also give their current selves that advice somehow.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So it's like that's good to keep in mind.
Well,
So
that's one of the
yeah.
things about stand up is like it's the coolest part and the scariest part is that like there's no like real like winning it. It's like you can constantly get better. You can constantly learn stuff, and like that's, you know, at times you're like, man, when am I gonna get great, or when am I gonna get amazing, or you know what I mean? Like, but you can always get
Mm-hmm.
better with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the cool things about it, though, is like there's always something to learn and figure out.
Yeah. It's like any instrument, you know, it's like
Hmm.
you play a guitar for 10, 20 years and then you're like, oh, wow, I'm still getting better. There's so much more to learn about this
Yes.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fun to be able to have that capability because you know what? So many people look at comedians, look at us as comedians and are like floored by the fact we can even get up on stage. And I think, you know, when dealing with anxiety, like that's not a small feat, you know,
Yeah.
like being able to remind yourself of like, hey, dude, like I do some pretty cool shit, like, and I'm willing to do that. And it does bring people together. And for me, that can kind of give some of the nerves some quiet, you know,
Hmm.
like it can quiet some of those voices just to be like,
Yeah.
you know what, this is not an easy thing. A very small percentage of the population even attempts to do it. So the fact that you are, I mean, it certainly speaks highly for the fact that you work through those fears,
Yeah.
despite the fact that they exist.
Yeah. You're,
So,
you're correct, Rudy.
oh,
You're
you're
right,
correct.
Rudy.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to watch Fright Night now because it's been
Yeah.
on there. Oh, there was another one that popped up next to Fright Night called House, and it had
Oh
a
yeah.
criteria. Have you seen House?
Is that
It's like
the
a
if it's
70s from the
Criterion?
Japanese.
It's gotta be the Haozu, the like Japanese one, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, that one's fucking amazing, dude. I remember when I saw that in Santa Cruz in like 2012 or 2013, and
Uh huh.
like I had never even heard of it before, and I was just like, "What the? How have I not heard? This movie's insane, dude. It's so much fun. It's so weird, and
Yeah.
like the visual elements in it are just fucking crazy. It's very, very interesting movie. It's well worth watching."
Okay. Well, I'll give Fright Night and Hausu
Yes.
uh, a look one of these next few days. If I
Cool.
see any other good horror, I'll let you know.
Yeah,
I got another horror, but I love
you
this.
definitely do, man. And wasn't Scott Seiss is a big horror guy, right?
Yeah, Cease was all about talking about movie. He wants to get into movies too and stuff. So
Hmm.
it's like
I hope
it's
he
fun to
does.
chat with people about it all. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
he was great in Cocaine Bear, and like I think he's just kind of a naturally funny dude. So I want to see him
Mm-hmm.
in more shit.
Hells yeah, for sure. Right on, Chad. Well, I want to see you in more
Well,
shit. I
thank
want to
you,
see
Rudy.
Opitz in more
Let's
shits.
do it.
Yeah. Right on, man. Well, it's good to see you. It's good to chat and be
Yeah,
able to
nice
connect
talking
a
to
little
you,
bit.
man. This is fun. Nice to talk to you, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna after we end this, if you could stick around for just a minute, that'd be
Sure.
great. But yeah, if people want to find out more of your stuff or see you more online, how can they do that?
ChadOpitz.com. And then at Chad Opitz, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. I'm posting all kinds of dumb bullshit on there, so there'll be something that makes you laugh. I've been posting a lot of like crazy Hong Kong movie clips because like one of them went nutty. It's gotten like 120,000 likes or something on it. And I was like, holy shit, maybe if I'll just do this every now and then too, along with my other stuff. And I mean, that's right in my wheelhouse anyway, so that's fun to do.
What was it? What kind of clip was it?
It was this clip from this 80s movie called Hong Kong Godfather. And there's this house brawl where like the whole house is just everyone, like there's a big fight happening, everyone in the house is involved. And then like this child is like beating up somebody, and then this guy just comes over and like grabs the kid, breaks his back over his knee, and throws him out a window. But it's a child, dude, and he just casually just tosses this kid out of a window.
Chucks him out.
But the way they do it is so fucking like funny, and it's like I edited it down to like 8 seconds or something like that. So especially out of context, it's just fucking hilarious.
Yeah, dude, I bet if you did one movie clip a week, I bet that would be a nice starter place for you to just like keep moving forward with online content, because people love your movie stuff, and you have a great eye for stuff. Like I really think that doing it, because Scott was like, it wasn't until I was doing it for like 6 months that it kind of started to take off, so it's like just about finding your kind of thing and hammering it home sometimes if you want to find that like audience online,
of course.
Which you totally deserve, because it's fun to see your shit. I laugh at your shit all the time, so
thanks, dude.
Yeah, for sure. Rock on, Chad. Well, thanks for stopping by. Great to hang out.
Nice chatting with you, dude.
Yeah, you too. Check out Chad Opitz on the interwebs, or even better, in person.
Oh yeah, baby.
Oh yeah. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Not jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. Jokes in the gym. With Rudy Tyburczy.
Because it's pretty special, and you're pretty special,